Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you a recent reads video. So it has been a week since I last checked in with you guys for a recent reads video. I have finished 7 books. So while this recent reads video technically includes the last 2 days of June, I actually did finish all of these books in July. I was reading still in the last few days of June, but I didn't finish anything. So all of these 7 books have been finished kind of in the last 5 days. So let's jump straight in and talk about all of the 7 books that I have read in the past week. So the first book I want to talk to you guys about is The Rumour by Leslie Cara. This is a book that I listened to on audio. It is narrated on audio by Claire Corbett, Sian Thomas, and Ray McMillan. So this is basically about a woman who lives in a kind of small town in the UK or small village. And one day she is at like the school gates or whatever, like dropping her son off at school, and she hears a rumour that a notorious child killer is living in their town. So this child killer is someone who years previously, when this person was 10 years old, they killed a little boy who was only 5 or 6, I think it is, when they were 10. And that, like, the rumor is that now this person is living in their town under a new identity. And so she hears this rumor, and then the story is basically about the town and how this rumor affects the town, and like people, like how it can become that a rumor can be spread and who possibly this child killer is, all of that. So this book, I didn't really have super high expectations for this going in. It was just one that I saw that my library had on audio. I didn't really know anything about it going in. This book was really, really, really good. It's one of the best thrillers that I think that I've read. It kept me guessing the whole time, which I love. So there are so many kind of suspects, but it wasn't like one of those ones where there's some, but you think, well, obviously it's like this person or this is what's happened. It's not like that at all. It kept me guessing the whole time, thinking, well, maybe it could be this person, or it could be that person, or this could tie in and it could be that person. Kept me guessing the whole time. There's a lot of really great commentary in there on rumors and like how rumors can be spread and the effect that rumors can have, or a false rumor can have if someone is accused of something, how that can destroy their life and all of that. Really interesting commentary on all of that. And then this book, the twist that had, like, it's a thriller, like, I don't know if I mean, the outcome, whatever, I did not see coming, which is so rare for me in thrillers. This was a really, really good time, a very solid thriller. I would highly, highly recommend. I ended up rating that 4.5 stars. I then read You by Carolyn Kepnes. This is a very hyped thriller. This is the story of a man named Joe Goldberg, who is a stalker. He becomes obsessed at the start of this book with a woman named Beck, and he starts to stalk her. And then through like stalking her, he ends up kind of dating her, but she doesn't know that he was stalking her and all of that type of thing. The shtick that this book kind of have is that it's told in second person. So it's told as though Joe, the main character, is talking to you. Like, it says, you walk into the bookstore and you keep your hand on the door to make sure it doesn't slam. So it's as if he is like talking to you, even though he's actually talking to Beck. So this didn't really live up to the hype for me. That's not a bad book. I enjoyed it. I think that the writing style, being in that second person, takes some getting used to. I think this would be especially creepy to listen to on audio, but as soon as I got used to the writing style, I didn't find it especially like really that creepy. But I was talking about this with my friend Mel, and I was mentioning to her that this book actually made me aware of something about myself as a reader, that I don't think that I am super sensitive to perspective. Like, if you said to me, oh, what perspective was a book written in, like The Rumour by Leslie Cara, for example, I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't remember. It's just not something that I'm aware of or that I really pick up on. So I don't know how much perspective really affects my reading experience as a reader. I do think that it was very clever. I think this book is well written and it was a very clever way to tell a story, but it probably didn't work as effectively for me as it would for a lot of other readers. The other thing that people seem to really love about this book is that, so none of the characters in this book are likable. You've got Joe, who's obviously a stalker and a really gross guy. So not overly likable. But then the woman that he's stalking and he's dating back is also really not a likable character. She's also pretty awful. And then there's kind of a friend of hers that's comes up in this, another really awful character. So there's no one to really like. But because of that, a lot of the time Joe seems like the best of a bad lots, even though he's this awful person who is stalking and doing these really awful things. A lot of people really start to root for him in this book, and he's like a really popular character, like in literature, that people kind of talk about. I didn't really feel that connection to him in this. I didn't connect to him the way that other people seem to. I also found the book pretty predictable. Like, there's nothing in this that was like overly shocking or thrilling to me. I also thought the story kind of dragged in spots. The pacing was like a little bit off for me at some points. It was really like, oh my gosh, like this is happening and this is happening. And then there's just really like slow parts of the story where it's just all about Joe and Beck's kind of relationship, and you're just kind of plodding through that, and then it would get a bit slow and dragged a bit for me in those spots. So this book had some ups and downs. I enjoyed it. It's an enjoyable reading experience. I think that it's well written, like I said, well crafted, all of that, but I don't think this was like as amazing for me as what it is for a lot of other people. And in the end, I rated this a 3.75 out of 5 stars. So there's that. I then read Creed by Trisha Lever and Lindsay Curry. This is a library book. This is a YA horror novel. It's pretty short. It's only like 250 pages. This is basically about a girl and her boyfriend and his brother. They're going on a kind of road trip to see a concert, and the car, they run out of petrol in like a back road, you know, middle of nowhere. And and it's like freezing cold, middle of winter. They end up getting out of the car and walking to the nearest town. When they get to the town is completely abandoned. Not abandoned, but like, it seems like there's been people there recently, but there's no one in any of the houses. There's no one at the gas station. There's just no one around. And then it's kind of starts to be the discovery of what is going on in this town. And it's kind of a, like you can tell from the synopsis that it's kind of a creepy cult town type of situation. This was enjoyable. It was just like a fun kind of rompy horror. It was like nothing new, like didn't really bring anything new to the genre. It was pretty predictable. I didn't love the ending, but it was just okay. Like I said, pretty like fairly enjoyable. In the end, I gave that 3 stars. I then listened on audio to Wedding Night by Sophie Kinsella, which was narrated by Finty Williams, Beth Chalmers, and Michael Fenton Stevens. So I mentioned this book in my TBR, I'm pretty sure, and I'd mentioned that I own a couple of books by Sophie Kinsella. I have them on my physical TBR. This bit of light, you guys, I'm trying to avoid it. I own a couple of books by Sophie Kinsella, but I don't think I've actually read anything by her. My library just happened to have this audio book, so I thought I'd give it a go. And I was pretty impressed. Like, I enjoyed it. So this is about the main character's kind of 2 sisters. So you've got one sister who every time she goes through a really bad breakup, she goes into kind of this denial period and then makes a really crazy life decision, like following the breakup, whether it's getting a really silly tattoo or making a really crazy career choice or whatever. And then ultimately the come down from that decision makes, once she starts to really accept the breakup and then also has to deal with this weird decision that she's made, you know, there's a lot of emotions that go on. And so at the start of this novel, we have this character, and she thinks that her boyfriend is about to propose to her, and he doesn't. And when he doesn't, she's really devastated, and she basically ends the relationship. And so she's gone through this breakup, and then basically she ends up meeting this guy who she had a kind of romance, like a holiday, like vacation romance when she was like 18, like in Greece. And they reconnect, and he proposes to her, and like they've literally just met again, and he proposes, and they get married. And the other main character, this is a really long-winded description, I apologize. The other main character is her sister, who is really concerned about this crazy life choice that she's made and wants her sister to be able to annul the marriage. And so because she wants her to be able to annul the marriage, one of the reasons that you can use to annul a marriage is if the marriage is not consummated. And so it's basically about the sister trying to stop the marriage from being consummated, so that once the sister realizes what a terrible mistake she's made, or what the sister thinks is a terrible mistake, that they will be able to annul their marriage. So it's very rom-com-y. Yes, it is a little bit ridiculous and like a bit silly, but it's like it's supposed to be. Like, it's not trying to be a serious, you know, literary novel. Like, it is what it is. So I really enjoyed this. I just thought it was fun. I liked both of the main characters. I really liked their kind of sister relationship. Yes, it's very predictable. You know everything that's going to happen. Like, you can tell pretty much everything that's going to happen. It's not a problem for me. I thought it was really enjoyable. The only thing that kind of brought this down from, it was probably about a 4-star book. That bit of light, you guys. I'm going to lean right over this way. The thing that brought it down from being a full 4-star rating for me was that there is a few just like throwaway comments that are like very girl hate type comments that I'm not super into. And every time like one would happen, it just like grated on me a little bit. But for the most part, it was really enjoyable. And in the end, I gave that 3.75 stars. I then listened on audio to Hold My Hand by MJ Ford. So this is an adult crime fiction novel. I think I can lean back this way because the sun just went behind a cloud. It's an adult crime fiction. So it's basically about, there's this girl, she's about 8 years old, and she's at like a county fair in the UK, and she sees a little boy being abducted by someone dressed as a clown. And the boy is like never found, and it's now 30, 40 years later, whatever, and she's an adult, and she is now a police detective, and another boy goes missing in a similar fashion at the same time as they have found the remains of the little boy who went missing like 30 years ago. And so it's about her trying to solve this mystery and figure out, are these two crimes connected? What happened to this little boy? Because she feels a lot of guilt that she didn't say anything when she saw this boy being led away by a clown. She feels a lot of guilt about it. So all of that. This was a very solid crime fiction novel. For the most part, it was fairly predictable. But then there was one kind of twist on it, which isn't like a super big part of it, but there was one part of it that I was like, oh, I didn't pick up on that, and so I did really like that. I also liked that the main character, character police detective that we're following, is a very enjoyable, relatable character. A lot of times with this type of crime fiction, you'll get a downtrodden police detective who's down on their luck and has a drinking problem or something like that. And the sun's back out, you guys. Josie, or Jo, she goes by both names in the book, is really not like that. She is just someone who's going through life and has the same types of struggles that a lot of people deal with, is trying to focus on her career, is dealing with guilt from something that happened in her childhood, and she was just a very like relatable, there the sun goes again, a very relatable character, which I really appreciated. And so yeah, this was just a really enjoyable, really solid crime fiction novel, and I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I then listened to another audiobook, which was Blue Heaven by CJ Box. So this is another, I guess, crime fiction. So this one, like a thrillery crime fiction. This one is about, there are 2 children, a boy and a girl, who, they're brother and sister, and they are trying to go fishing one day at like a local creek, and they're there when they witness 4 men shooting and killing another man, and they come to realize, they like quickly run away. The 4 men see them, they quickly run away, and they come across this man who offers to like drive them to town. They tell him what happened, and then they realize that he is connected to the 4 other men, and you come to realize that these people are retired police detectives who have like retired to this rural town where they live, and so they don't know what to do because the police detectives become involved in the search for the missing children, and so they don't know what to do because they know that the police detectives don't want them to be found because they know that police detectives murdered this man, and they basically end up coming across this farmer who owns a ranch who tries to help them, and it's about that situation. For me, this was just quite boring. Not a lot happened. Everything that does happen is super predictable. There's nothing that happens in this book that you don't expect, which can be fine, but I just didn't really connect to anyone. Like, it was just kind of a boring story. It's also a bit over the top and like ridiculous in like the premise and the way that things happen. You're just thinking, I don't believe that like this would actually go down like this. And then at the very end, the very ending of the book just got a bit weird and also a bit unclear. Like, I'm pretty sure what the author was trying to say had happened, but they were very unclear about the way in which they wrote it, which I found quite frustrating. I should say this one was narrated by John Bedford Lloyd. So yeah, just really not my favorite crime fiction, and in the end I gave that 2.5 stars. So then the final book that I read over this past week was Hidden Bodies by Carolyn Kepnes. So this is the sequel to You. And so, very unpopular opinion, I enjoyed this sequel more than I enjoyed the first book. In this book, so this book doesn't have the second perspective thing. This book's not told in second perspective, but this is the book where I really started to connect to the main character. This is where I started to root for him and the terrible things that he's doing. I really start to find myself connecting to him, and even though he's doing these awful things and you're thinking you want him to get away with them, or sometimes like he's like thinking about murdering someone and you really don't like that character, so you are like, yes, just murder them, which obviously in real life I'm not okay with, but in the book you really do start to like relate to Joe and be on his side in things. So I enjoyed this one more than the first one. However, I did still give this just a 3.75 star rating because I do still think this book had problems. The start of this book is very slow. It took me a while to get into. The setup from taking this book from the end of where we left off in You to kind of the main crux of the plot of this story, it took us a while to get there and it was very slow to get going. I also thought that this book should have ended about 20 pages before it did. Like, the last 20 pages of the book, I didn't super enjoy, and I thought didn't add anything to the story, and I think it should have ended about 20 pages before, and it would have been a bit more of a like impactful ending for me. But I did enjoy this. Like I said, I enjoyed this a little bit more than You, but yeah, I still end up giving this one a 3.75 out of 5. So that's it, you guys. Those are the 7 books that I've read over the past week. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below. If you've read any of these books, if you've got any thoughts, I would love to chat about what you guys have been reading recently. I would love to know. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye, guys.